Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of appropriate ages, welcome back to another live episode of Spirited. Today's guest is Mr. One Shane Merriam, or is it Merriam? I actually do not know Shane. Merriam or Merriam?
It's Merriam, like the dictionary.
Got it. So Mr. Shane Merriam, National Bourbon Provocateur, Bourbon National Brand Ambassador for one of the biggest cult follow bourbons in the world, especially outside of Kentucky. Shane is the national brand ambassador for Garrison Brothers Texas whiskey, Texas bourbon. And I'm really excited. If you know me, you know I'm a huge fan of Garrison. And I'm really excited to welcome Shane to the show. As always, everybody watching, feel free to leave comments and hit us up with questions and, smart marks in the chat. I'll see them and I'll ask either I'll post them up on the comments or I'll, ask them to Shane directly and give you credit for it. So before I keep going on and on and on, because y'all get enough of me every week, I'm gonna pass it over to Shane and let him tell us a little about himself and about what we'll be drinking today, and then we'll get into it. Shane, how you doing? You're live from Texas today, right? You're back at the distillery?
Yeah, I'm at the distillery with 14 bartenders from all over the country. We just finished dumping and waxing 1,272 bottles of our honeydew bourbon this afternoon, and we're just getting ready to do a little bit of a family-style meal tonight. Probably kill a few more of these babies and then head back to the distillery tomorrow for another day of bottling.
Fantastic. I remember when I went to my hideaway, night 2 was fish fry, and it was also campfire night with family bottle. I mean, you can't really do family bottle anymore, at least not right now, but that was fun. The friendship bottle is what you call it, right?
Absolutely.
So, since you're cracking that, fresh I see, why don't you tell us a little bit about the mash and the age on that and how Garrison kind of got started?
Sure thing. So what I'll do is I'm going to start off every time I do a call or a podcast or even meet people in person and just say that Garrison Brothers, we believe good bourbon is going to change the world, so we hope you enjoy it. Start with a little cheers to you. And
well,
then,
let me
Sam,
toast you then with a little bit of cowboy.
There you go. So anytime you hear me or Sam this afternoon say the word terroir, you need to take a sip because we're going to be discussing our terroir in depth pretty much.
You just said it, so we got to take a sip.
I'm the bourbon provocateur for Garrison Brothers Distillery, where the legal bourbon coming out of the great state of Texas. And yes, you can make bourbon anywhere in America. 1964.
Thank you. Actually, I want to pause you there, Shane, because a lot of people have that misconception that bourbon's only made in Kentucky, when actually the ABCs for bourbon just state bourbon has to be made in America. And the TTB, the Tax and Trade Bureau, the ones who approve the labels and who set up the laws for bourbon, even allow you to make it in Puerto Rico and Guam.
Yep. I don't know anybody making it in Puerto Rico or Guam, but you could if you wanted to.
Neither do I, but that's not the point.
Yeah, so back in 1964, Congress and everybody really wanted to get, bourbon certified as America's own. If you look back in history, there was bourbon coming out of Canada and other countries, but they really wanted to make it distinct and make it their own. So in 1964, President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was born 15 miles down the road there in Johnson City, I wonder what it was called before. He was born there. So he named it after him. I can find that out. He signed that declaration, so we've been following all the bourbon rules to be that, and that's what we did. The very first bourbon coming out of Texas. Few things that make us a little bit different, and we can get into depth as much as you want with that afternoon, Sam, is we are a wheated bourbon. Everything we do in the distillery is the exact same mash bill. We're using all Texas grains. We're using Texas white corn that we're getting from the south of Texas. We're using 74% of that, 15% soft redwood wheat that we're growing right on our property here in Fredericksburg in High Texas, and 11% malted barley. High Texas, HYE, is just about an hour west of Austin or about an hour and 15 minutes northwest of San Antonio. You basically took a dart through the map of Texas and hit a bullseye, you'd be hitting our manufacture out here, and the reason that Dan chose to build his distillery here was because we're sitting on top of an amazing limestone aquifer that's providing us with such incredibly hard water, so chock full of vitamins and minerals. It stinks to shower in, it'll ruin your coffee maker, but that water that we're doing feeds that yeast, feeding off all the sugars that we convert from starch. It makes for some damn fine sweet mash that we're getting in there. Out in Kentucky and Tennessee, a lot of distilleries, they're getting their sweet mash or their mash could be a sweet mash, could be a sour mash or their distiller's beer, probably around 7 or 8% ABV. Ours jumps up to 14% ABV, so you can already come out and get shit canned off our mash first thing in the morning, and that's before we even put it into the stills and start distilling our white dogs.
Do you just say you're... Whoa. You were saying 14% the distiller's beer?
ABV, yeah. Our bricks level goes through the roof. We're getting about 24 bricks with sugar content. That white panhandle corn gets a lot more starch converted into those sugars. So we're doing about 24 bricks on there. And we pitch that yeast, and that yeast has kind of a big meth head, crackhead pool party that you see out there in Vegas, just bubbling away, eating all the sugars, turning those sugars into alcohol, CO2, and heat. So we got a 14% ABV after a 4-day fermentation, and then we transfer that entire sweet mash, grate it all right into our copper pot stills with an 8-column plate stuff, and we distill it. When we're distilling out there, we're doing it about 135, 137 proof off the still. As you know, to legally be called bourbon, you have to do it under 160 proof. If you're distilling any higher than 160, you're making gin, you're making vodka, you're making neutral grade spirits, making hand sanitizer right now as well. Basically, just getting a lot more alcohol. We want to keep it low and slow like barbecue to get as much of those oils out of there as possible. Yep.
Garrison, when the program started, y'all pivoted to making some hand sanitizer, the wash your damn hands sanitizer, if I remember it correctly. How has that affected production on the stills? Because, you're distilling this neutral grain spirit and you're making hand sanitizer, you're not producing commercial food grade alcohol.
Our hand sanitizer is the exact same mash bill as our bourbon, and we're just adding the ingredients that the World Health Organization says to make that. So if you've ever got a bottle of our hand sanitizer, it actually smells just like our white dog. You can smell the corn on that. So it wasn't affecting anything. We were just distilling our white dog like we normally would, instead of filling it into charred oak barrels and putting it aside for 4 years to make bourbon. We just added a little bit of aloe and a couple other ingredients that you had to and put it in the sanitizer bottle.
Now, you didn't distill with these other ingredients, did you? Or is it, added post-distillation? That's one thing I was a little bit confused about.
The exact same white dog, the exact same spirit, the exact same distillate. Yes, the most expensive hand sanitizer on the market. Yeah, it was important for us to really take care of our neighbors out here in Fredericksburg, take care of the schools and the school teachers, the postal workers, the supermarket workers, the first responders, the sheriff's office. That's the number one important thing, taking care of our neighbors out here in Texas. That's more important than any cost or anything like that. So anytime that we have an opportunity to help out, Dan and Don and Todd, our master distiller, and huge champions of the cause.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that, taking care of the neighbors. Because Garrison really is community oriented, especially for a liquor company, a spirits company. Garrison Brothers, just in terms of the way you approach hiring, the way you approach your team, your interaction with trade, and your interaction with the end consumer, it's really oriented in relationship and community, and that's something I really respect, which is kind of evidenced by the old 300. Let's just talk about it a little bit. Who are the old 300?
So the old 300 are the original members and the original investors in our distillery. Dan and the entire team of Garrison Brothers, we probably did the dumbest business model of opening a bourbon distillery that you could possibly do on the planet. We are a bourbon distillery. That's all we make, with the exception of hand sanitizer right now. We don't make anything else. So when we first started distilling back in 2010, we had to wait 3 years to bourbon, and for any income to start coming in. We weren't out there selling anything. Yeah, our T-shirt sales certainly weren't paying the rent, paying for all the ingredients and everything like that. So we didn't have vodka or gin or anything else to fall back on to help sustain the bills. And we never sourced any whiskey and labeled it out there as Garrison Brothers while we were waiting for ours. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with sourcing whiskey, so don't get me wrong on that. I'm just saying that we're a bunch of idiots and did it the real hard way, but super proud about the way we did it.
I mean, being proud is a very Texan thing, so. So talk to me, Shane, a little bit more about, how this kind of came about. What was, Dan's inspiration to starting Garrison Brothers?
I mean, it all depends how much you're drinking and how much we're going to get into that story. I mean, there's out there where I heard the stories about his lovely wife, Nancy Garrison, would yell at him when he was sitting on the couch in his tidy whities and said, well, you drink so much of that stuff, you may as well make it. So I think that's kind of when the light bulb went off, and he started thinking that. But it was really in the 90s, during the dot-com boom, he was seeing all these people around there starting up these companies and making all kinds of, money. And he figured, well, I'm a pretty smart guy, and well, his younger brother Charlie thinks he's a pretty smart guy too. And he got some software writers. They opened up a company, and overnight he was worth millions and millions of dollars on the stock market. Now, fast forward a few years or a little while, and a thing called Enron in Houston happened, and he came crashing down. So he was worth absolutely nothing now. Now, as you know, with most startups, you're not allowed to cash out on those commodities or anything like that. So, unfortunately, the IRS came knocking on his door and said, by the way, you owe us $160,000 in back taxes for those commodities that you never cashed out on. Now, Dan knew he was going to be a lifetime entrepreneur, and Charlie Garrison, the younger brother, always knew that Dan was going to have his name on his shirt. Now, whether that be his own company name or his inmate number, it was going to be sitting there on his shirt one day. So Dan begged, pleaded, borrowed, did whatever he could, rounded up $60,000 from his friends and family. He went out there to the IRS and said, we can do one or two things here, gentlemen. I can give you this check for $60,000. We can call it a day and we'll both go our separate ways. Or I'm going to take this check for $60,000, go down to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and drink myself shit-faced until every single nickel's gone. So the IRS said, well, let's not be a little bit hasty there, Mr. Garrison. We'll just gladly take your check and we'll go our separate ways. Now, this is when Dan, being a loving husband and a very responsible father, went to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail anyway. And where he got to meet, late great Elmer T. Lee with the Buffalo Trace, late great Dave Pickrow with the Maker's Mark at the time, Jimmy Duddy Russell over Wild Turkey, and he sat there with them and just asked the question, why do all your tour guys keep saying that you can only make bourbon in Kentucky? We all know that's a load of horseshit. Well, Elmer found this particularly interesting because Elmer had already done everything there was to do for bourbon in Kentucky. And he was growing quite bored. He had been studying aquifers throughout the country and wondering why America is so many generations behind Scotland on styles of whiskey. When Scotland is such a tiny country, but so many different flavors and mashes and varieties coming out there. So being this big old brash, crazy Texas, that he knew the aquifer that we were on out here in high Texas, and he wanted to make bourbon with a completely different terroir. Everybody else does. And so he was intrigued. So we got a lot of help in the beginning from our friends out there in Kentucky. But the problem was, whenever we messed up, which was quite often, we call them for help, and the answer would always be the exact same thing. I don't know. That's never happened in Kentucky. So we just had to figure everything out on our own.
That's never happened in Kentucky. I'm sure Dan and Charlie a little bit too. Kind of got tired of that phrase, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's just some of the differences that we have. I mean, we didn't set out by thinking we were going to do, a sweet mash in our bourbon. We didn't set out when we first started. We were using the same yellow corn they were using out there. But, Don and thought, well, why aren't we taking care of our neighbors? Let's go meet some local corn growers here in cost savings whiskey. Like, we're not going to work with that. And again, it goes back to why are we taking care of our neighbors? So the really difficult one to source wasn't the corn. I mean, I think the only people that might use more white corn than us in the factories. But the real issue is the malted barley. Barley doesn't grow too well out here in Texas. So for Don and Dan to secure those barley from those barley farmers to fight off all the local craft breweries that wanted to make their Texas proud beer, that was a real big thing for us. So taking care of the neighbors and all the Texas grain. And then there was those things that we just discovered on our own. We knew the water was going to be good. We didn't know how good it was going to be. We didn't know we were going to get, that 14% ABV because the water has so many vitamins and minerals feeding that yeast. We also learned that we should probably leave all our pipes above ground because the sediment in those pipes, they close so much from so much calcium and magnesium and everything builds up. We got to change those pipes every 3 years. So it's just the growing pains. What we're doing to our barrels, again, we started using the same 53-gallon barrels that our friends out there in Kentucky suggested we were using. Those barrels blew up. Now, I'm not talking they blew up like the Death Star in Star Wars, but what happens when you fill a barrel of whiskey is you get the devil's cut, which soaks into the wood. I don't care what some other brands say, you never get that back. That's in the wood forever. That stays there, creating a little vapor pocket in those barrels. As it gets warmer, that vapor pocket expands, forcing that distillate into the wood. As it gets cooler, it retracts, and that whiskey, that distillate, that bourbon, that white dog, that white lightning, whatever you want to call it, is going in and out of the barrel like a sponge, like a heartbeat. When we first started to fill those 53-gallon barrels, they just have never gotten to 120 degrees out there in Tennessee, Kentucky. That vapor pocket got so big, the state was split, and we lost all the white dog out there. Lost $3.2 million on our very first run. So Dan kind of looked at this as a puzzle and said, well, they get real hot in places out there like where you are, Sam, in California. And said, why doesn't that happen to wine barrels? So we went out and we talked to them and we talked to some cooperages out there. So we use 3 cooperages right now. We use Kelvin Cooperage out in Louisville, Kentucky. We use Barrel Mill and Black Swan up in Minnesota. And they make us same brand new charred American oak, 53 check and char, 20-minute toast on those that are 15, 25, and 30 gallons. They can withstand that diurnal shift and the terroir that we have in Texas. So those barrels don't burst. We don't lose any more of our precious white dog. Again, another difference with us, especially is the term that I'm sure most of your listeners know, the angel share. Out there in Ireland and Scotland, they're losing 2 to 3%. That's how they can get these 25 to 30-year-old whiskeys. In Tennessee and Kentucky, you're looking at maybe 7, maybe 8%. We're losing 14 to 15% a year in angel share. So again, Mother Nature is a little bit of a bitch out here in Texas, but we do believe that generosity gives back. And what she leaves us with, we believe, is some pretty fine bourbon.
I'm sorry, Shane, you cut out for a second there. What was the percentage of angel share in Texas per year?
14 to 15% a year out here in Texas.
Wow, 14 to 15%.
Yeah, so when you think of it, when you fill a 30-gallon barrel and you're losing the devil's cut, then you're losing the angel share annually, we might be lucky if we yield 10 to 14 gallons out of that 30-gallon barrel after 4 years. To give you a great example, I get when the bartenders come out all the time if they want to fly home with a barrel, we did a fun little experiment. We got a brand new 15-gallon barrel from Barrel Mill up there in Minnesota. We weighed it when it came straight to us. It weighed 43 pounds. Now we dumped one of those barrels that day. After dumping it, that barrel weighed 15 and a half pounds. There was 7.5 pounds of bourbon that was in that wood that's never, ever coming back.
Wow.
14% that we lose every year. It's just the cost of making bourbon out here in Texas. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different where we are.
Well, on that note, let's drink some Texas bourbon. Let's talk about the actual whiskey in the glasses.
I've been doing it all day, Sam. I'm way ahead of you.
Well, I haven't been doing it all day. So, Shane, what should I start off with? So I did take a little bit of the sip of the Cowboy earlier when we had it with toast. I got the Balmoral, I got the Honeydew, and I got the Laguna right here.
I don't tell people how to drink their bourbon. I don't tell people how to live their life. You go right ahead and do whatever. Just if you want to, just go by your palate and everything. I probably would start with the honeydew because it is the lowest in fruit. I don't think after you have some of our 115 proof Balmaray, and I don't know what year Cowboy you have, but
2020.
It's is that what 134 that year? I can't remember off the top of my head. But
it's 66.95, and math is never my strong suit, so I'm not even gonna try.
double it, yeah, basically. So you're up there, but once you go down to the 80s, I mean, you may as well start with the honeydew. That's what we've been drinking all day. We did, like I said, 1,276 bottles waxed and signed by Donis and all the 14 bartenders I have out here in Texas with me today. So it was a fun day.
Yeah, so talk to the viewers about the Hideaway. What is the Bartender Hideaway?
So the Bartender Hideaway is a program that Dan and Donis asked me to get started a couple years ago. So the kind of way that we discovered each other was, I've lived and bartended in 5 countries all over the planet, and had a pretty solid whiskey collection of about 600 bottles at my house and stuff the whiskey library. So I had a chance meeting with Charlie Garrison at a United Bartenders Guild meeting in Las Vegas, and I sat there in the back of the room. I tasted that bourbon for the very first time, and I saw rainbows and unicorns. Now, Charlie sat up there in front of all of us bartenders with his big old cowboy hat and started telling all these crazy stories, and I just sat there in the back going, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. None of this is true. This has to be marketing stuff. There's no way. So when he told me that every single one of our bottles was all handed and waxed by volunteers to come and hang out with us, I said, well, that sounds like a good time. So I got on a plane, I flew out there and saw the distillery for the first time, and my jaw dropped. I could not believe how small the ranch was, how small the stills were, 500-gallon stills at the time, compared to some of these other distilleries that I've seen around the planet. And I got to meet the entire team. I got to hang out with Dan.
How small the
Yeah, it absolutely blew me away. So I went back to Vegas, told a whole bunch of my other bartender friends about it. And, I called up Don and Chris and I said, how about I get a group of bartenders and we go out there and we take over the distillery? So they said, well, that sounds cool. We've never done that before. So a bunch of us from Vegas, we got on a plane, we flew out to the distillery. We took over the bottling line, and about halfway through day 1, Donis rolled up to me and he goes, these were all your friends. I said, yeah, most of them are my best friends. He goes, you guys are so mean to each other. I said, that's how you know we're bartenders. So we sat there, we took over, we had a ton of fun, and then later that night we invited the entire distillery back to where we were staying. We had a big old barbecue. We did a cocktail competition for them. Busted out my little, probably the other room, my bartender challenge coin, and gave Dan my coin, and I challenged him to make his better bourbon, to make the world a better place. Dan said, I don't know what's going on right now, but from now on, I want you to work for me. Now, I never really saw this as a real thing. I was working for a brewery out there in Vegas, having a great time with all my friends, but Dan wouldn't take no for an answer. So after months and months of us going back and forth and hanging out and meeting people from the distillery, I sat down, had a lunch down at High Market with Dan, which is our little post office just down the road. I believe it's the only post office in Texas that serves beer. But we sat down, we talked about it, and I said, Dan, let me get this straight. That you want to hire a failed French-Canadian hockey player to roll around Texas talking about your bourbon. Dan just looked at me dead in the eye and said, don't be an idiot. I have Texas. You have the rest of the country. And the rest of the country. Basically, he asked me, a few months later, he said, that was still probably the most fun that we've all had up there at the distillery. Everybody is still talking about it. Is there any way you could recreate that? So that's where we all worked together and came up with this Bartender Hideaway program. So it's really open to anybody in the industry, not just bartenders, but it does have a nice ring to it. We get restaurant folks, servers, barbacks, everybody coming out front of the house, back of the house. All you got to do is get to Austin. We pick you up at the airport. We take care of the rest. We put you up in these beautiful ranch accommodations that are right around the corner from the distillery. We feed you breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We do shots of bourbon every we hang out together. You know, we break bread, we do a fish fry, we do a cocktail competition. It just turns into a whole lot of fun. And then at the end of the 3 days, 2 nights, not only are you leaving with 14 new best friends and a ton of knowledge on bourbon and whiskey in your back pocket, but you're now part of the Garrison Brothers family. And for all these bartenders who go out and see each other at other events, go around the world, it really is, you know, good bourbon changing the world. We're just making bonds and friendships with people all over. So obviously this year's been a little bit tough with everything going on around the planet, but back in October, Donna gave me a call and said, why don't we see if we can get some bartenders out here to do it safely. You know, we're out there, we're wearing our masks while we're at the distillery, we're practicing all safe, we got hand sanitizer all over, and we're making sure we take care of ourselves and everything. But we do these programs about once a month. All you got to do is get in touch with me. You can drop me an email, shane@garrisonbros.com. You can follow me, Bourbon Provocateur, on Instagram. Hit me up on Facebook, get my details from Sam, and I let you know when the dates are. And all you got to do is reserve your spot. You don't have to write me an essay, make an application, do a video of why you think you deserve to go. We just want to get people that want to come out and want to come hang out with us and drink good bourbon. So it has turned into a real life changing.
I put your email on the screen, Shane, for anyone interested in coming. I know Shane's connection is a little bad today, you guys. He is out in the Texas countryside, not even joking, like high Texas, Fredericksburg, Texas, is the countryside. But what he was saying is that anyone who wants to go to this Garrison Brothers hideaway, it's for, you know, industry, members of the hospitality industry, to front of house, back of house, bartender, barback, server, you know, doesn't matter. Drop an email to Shane at the email on the screen right now and let him know that you want to go. And when there's an opening, he'll make sure to get you on it and he'll let you know. If you guys take a look at this bottle right here, you will see that there is an unopened bottle of Garrison Brothers on my desk. Now, Giannis and Dan, and even you, Shane, probably say, well, why haven't you drank that yet? This was from my bartender hideaway, and the bottle, there's not, the juice inside isn't anything, you know, super rare. It's good bourbon, of course. Damn good bourbon, as Garrison would say. It's just the 2019 small batch. But this bottle is hand dipped by me, actually, and stamped with my little signet ring that I wear on my right middle finger. And on the back, actually, Donna signed it for me. This was the bottle that I got from my bartender hideaway. And it said, Sam, enjoy whiskey, Sommelier, Donna Todd. So that bottle is actually never going to get opened because the sentimental value is more important than the liquid inside to me.
You got to drink that bottle, Sam. Come on now.
Not happening, Shane. Can't do it. I just can't do it.
So did you start with the Honeydew? What do you think about that one? So the Honeydew is one of our newest releases. We released it this July out of the distillery, and the reception's been great so far. So another thing about bourbon laws, you're not allowed adding anything to that. So how do we get our Honeydew bourbon? Well, basically we start with our small batch bourbon, which is our 4 year bourbon. I already told you the mash on there. Then after 4 years, we dump those barrels out. And we take those staves and we cut them into small cubes and we soak them into a local honey that we get supplied to us by Burleson. We then wrap that in a cheesecloth and we dip that into the bourbon once a day for 90 days. So it is a honey soaked oak, say that 3 times fast, infused bourbon. There's a little bit of natural flavor that's getting in there from the wood. So with bourbon, you are allowed to do it in a secondary or even a third finish. You can finish in a port cask, in a sherry barrel, in a tequila barrel, in a cognac barrel, as long as you just close that on the label. It has to say finished in there. So, Sam, I don't know if you have the actual bottle there, but when you look right on a bottle of Honeydew bourbon, it'll say honey soaked oak finished bourbon. We were to have taken some honey and added that in there, we could call it a whiskey all day long, but we couldn't call it a bourbon. That's also the one thing that we've done, proof down to 80. It's the only thing we've ever done under 94 proof. So, yeah, hopefully that underproofing really lets a bit of that natural honey flavor shine. So, Sam, I'd love to pick your
Absolutely. So, this is the second I've had honeydew. I tried it about a month ago with a whiskey club out here in LA. They were doing a Garrison tasting, and I saw Laguna on the lineup, and I'm like, well, shit, that's nothing I'm gonna get ever again, probably, at least not for a while. So I signed up, and they sent me some honeydew, some cowboy, and some Balmoral as well, as little small batches, a couple single barrels. But those I killed that night. And the first time I had the honeydew, it was a little too sweet for me. You know, I don't mind honey, but
That's a fun one. So that's kind of
it's
the
just
way I
not
kind
for
of look
me.
at that is as an entry level. We are making big old Texas bourbon, big in your face. So for a lot of whiskey beginners and just kind of getting into the category, whether they be stretching over from vodka or tequila or maybe Irish whiskey or something, it is a lot. It's something to you buckle your seatbelt up and you get ready for the ride. It's a fun one. So how do you do something a little bit lighter and approachable to really kind of dip your toe or like your Winnie the Pooh, stick your head in the honey jar to get it started out? Really, it was the brainchild of Nancy Garrison, Dan's wife, where Nancy went up to Dan and said, I want you to make me a flavored bourbon. Now, Dan thought he was out of harm's way. So he said, well, I'm sorry, darling. By law, I can't do that. She just looked at him dead in the eye and said, figure it out, and left the room. So that's what they've done with this honeydew.
So let's move on from honeydew to the 2019 Balmoral coming in at 57.5%. Now, Balmoral is named after the Balmoral State Park, and how much of the proceeds from each sale go to the park?
So the proceeds from the bottle sales in Texas was $5 that went there, but we raised $500,000 to help restore that state park. It's a beautiful state park. If you're on your computer or your phone, go ahead and Google it. It's got a natural spring swimming hole about the size of 3 football fields. A beautiful blue color, which is why our bottles are labeled out there in blue. And we wanted this year to have the biggest pool party the world's ever seen out there, but obviously COVID took that away from us. So we're hoping to get that going on next year. Now, a real fun thing is when we were donating that $500,000 to the state parks, they gladly took it and then called Dan back and said, Dan, we have a little bit of a problem. And he said, well, what's the problem? He said, you're not allowed having any alcohol or spirits inside the state park. So to which Dan just kind of went, are you shitting me? I just gave you $500,000. Figure it out. So over the course of the year, Hope Park has been with us over there. She was talking back and forth with state parks, and if we're doing it for a charity event, and as we know, good bourbon's going to change the world, we're now allowed to have bourbon in state parks. So we're super grateful, super happy to be able to help restore that park, and hopefully we'll be able to get that pool party out there. Now, as I said at the start of the show, every single thing we do at Garrison Brothers is the exact same mass bill, the exact same water, same yeast, big story rick houses. You don't have some of those big story rick houses where you'll get a massive variance in temperature out there. So we're already making some of the most expensive bourbon out there in America. So this one I kind of like to joke around. I think this was Don and Todd, our master distiller, just trying to piss off our accountant. He said, well, what if I take a 4-year whiskey or a 4-year bourbon and I've had in one brand new charred oak barrel and put it into another brand new charred oak barrel and finish that off for another year or two? So that's what our Balmoral is. It's not a 6-year whiskey. It's a fortitude. It's been double oak. So you're getting that double first impact of the wood. So kind of think about a tea bag. If you use a tea bag once, you're going to get a lot of flavor. Sometimes you're not
Right.
going to get as much flavor. But if you add another tea bag, you're going to double up on that. So it was a real careful balance to make sure that it wasn't over oak and turned into a big wood bomb. So we proved that down to 115 proof. I think it drinks like a twin bar. The best probably write-up I've ever seen in a magazine was they just called it 3 words, candy motor oil. So that's been a real fun one of ours.
Say candy motor oil?
Candy motor oil. That's the way to describe that thing. And Sam, I don't know if you know, that used to be an annual release that we would do out here in High Texas, but starting January, that's going to be available year round. So if we're in your state, check your stores, ask your local liquor stores. We'll be out there. Really excited to see how that goes.
Really? Balmorhea is year round now.
Year round. So a few years back, I believe we might be the only distillery in the world to get three Jim Murray awards back to back to back. And Don has kind of knew he was onto something, so he didn't ask permission. He just did it and started to lay down some of this double oak bourbon years ago. So if he hadn't have had that foresight to get it done, we'd probably be another 3-4 years from having that available year round. So super glad he did it.
I'm certainly glad he did as well. So, talk to the viewers, Shane, a little bit. I know, I keep saying that, but it's because I want them to learn about this, for those who don't know already, about the process of finding the Balmorhea barrels. What barrels, because it's not just, any old barrel. You guys pick the sweet ones, right? Like, not like sweet, like taste-wise, but like, Donis and Dan, mostly Donis, I believe, picks like a certain type of barrel. Like it's got to have a certain flavor profile to be ready to be put into the next barrel for Balmorhea, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a Dan and Donna's thing, and I mean, they know their property like the back of their hand, and they can go out there and find those barrels. We've got some exciting stuff, hopefully coming down the pipe in the next couple of years that, of course, I can share with you, but it's just a method and a different way of thinking that that Donna's explained it to me. He's just going to bring the pool a little bit closer to him. So instead of going through the rig houses and searching and trying to find those barrels that have exactly what he's looking for, he's going to bring those flavors a little bit closer. So it was real exciting when I heard about it. Can't wait to see how that goes. But we don't touch it. We don't set a calendar. We don't say we're going to go try this in 4 years because it turns for tomorrow. Donna just goes out there. We got a glass. We got a drill holes in the barrel, tastes it, and knows what he wants to do with it. Knows that it's going to be destined, excuse me, to go into our small batch, which is basically just a combination of all those barrels for consistency. Every time you see a bottle of this small batch bourbon, it's the exact same flavor profile. So this is the same bourbon that you have there in your little glass there. And then when he finds those barrels that have an extra little nuance to it, maybe it might be some marzipan, maybe it might be some chocolate ganache, maybe salted caramel. We'll pull those barrels out and we'll release that in our silver wax. That is our single barrel series. So we'll put the barrel number on the side. Each time you have a bourbon from a different barrel, it'll have a slightly different characteristic to it, but still have that same Texas bourbon backbone to it. Now, when he does taste those, he goes, yep, this one's going to be destined, to go into our Balmorhea. I'm going to dump this out and then put it into another brand new charred oak barrel and leave that for a year or two. That's the Balmorhea. Or it could be, and this is a great segue, completely unintentional, but hey, I'll take it into our cowboy bourbon. After 4 years with Don, it takes one of those barrels and sees that there's something real special going on here. Maybe this bourbon barrel can last another Texas summer, maybe an extra 2 Texas summers. He'll take those barrels out. He puts them into what he calls his little sugar bank. He won't tell me where that sugar bank is. He knows all Robin wine. And then he lets that just sit there and simmer for another Texas summer or 2. Every about August, he'll take all those barrels for that year, dump them all together, and we bottle it, uncut, unfiltered, at cask strength. So every single year when we release our cowboy, we don't know what the proof is until we've combined all those barrels, and we don't know what the yield is going to be until we hand tip and number each and every single one of those bottles. Every year it's a little bit different. I had somebody, I explained this, they said, so I can come get a single barrel of cowboy. Well, no, you can't get a single barrel of cowboy because there's no such thing as a combination of all the barrels from these years that make it that. So again, when you think about what I said, we're doing a 4-year bourbon and we're losing 14% a year. Now when Don sees that cowboy bourbon that 5 years, each season has a 20% effect on the flavor. So they're going to change quite a little bit more every year with the Cowboy Bourbon, as opposed to, let's say, if you did a 25-year-old Scotch. Now you have every single year really accounts for about 4% of the flavor. So much more consistent than what we're
talking about, some of the special releases from Garrison Brothers. Y'all just released a brand new distillery only that's already sold out. That is a straight from your normal mash bill. Do you want to talk a little about the high rye?
Yeah, so the high rye is the only thing that we've ever done with a different mash bill. So the high rye is the bourbon. It's spelled Hyrye, with 52% white panhandle corn, 37% rye, and 11% malted barley. So Jack, one of our distillers, started with us way back in the day. He was very instrumental in selecting and distilling, selecting the mash bill and distilling it out there with Don. And so, I can still say that we're a bourbon distillery. That's all we ever make. It is bourbon. And that's the only time we've ever made it. So everything with the exception of that is the exact same mash bill. From what I've heard, we're never going to do that again. So yeah, rye is very, very finicky. When you start distilling it, it can roll over, it can paste up, it can jam up. And then another thing that I'd love to actually talk to some more distilleries that deal a lot more with rye about what it does in the barrel. For some reason unknown to us, it really produced about 3 to 4 times more barrel char getting dumped out. So it's like it really ate out and the inside of those barrels. We went through 4 times the filters to filter out that barrel char while we were bottling it, so that you didn't get all these little floaties in your bottle of that. So it really was a good pain in the ass, but nice something different to try and try to figure out. But as I was talking with Donna today, it was really fun because we got to tick a lot of boxes. Dan said that he would never do a flavored bourbon. Well, Honeydew's not a flavored bourbon, but we picked that one off. Dan said he would never do an 80 proof bourbon. Well, we got that with Honeydew. Oh, we picked that one off. Dan said he would never have a rye bourbon in there. Oh, we picked that one off. So it really is just a friendly game that we get to play out here at Garrison Brothers.
What else has Dan said he'd never do? Because I want to hear this and see, Donis say, all right, Dan, I did it anyway.
I'll tell you what, Sam, we're going to need to drink a lot more if we start to get into the things Dan said he would never do. So we'll save that for another.
Well, then I'll drink to that.
Cheers.
So we are nearing the end of the little chat today, Shane. But on my desk, obviously, I have this little display case and I'm wearing one around my neck. Do you want to talk a little about, Garrison's coins? Most people who know me know I'm a huge coin collector, and I accidentally stumbled upon the Garrison Brothers coins before they were released, looking up Bourbon Challenge coins on Google Images, and there popped up Garrison Brothers coins, and I'm like, what in the hell? I've never seen these.
So, yeah, I mean, the whole thing with coins really started in the military, where members would switch their coins back and forth. It was ways for them to get identified over military lines in World War I and World War II. And being that we have so many veterans that work for us in Garrison Brothers, was just something that we kind of carried along and said, let's get that tradition started with us at the distillery. If you ever come out and visit us, please do. Like I said, we're just an hour away from Austin. You can come out, you can tour the entire facility, you can touch everything, taste everything, ask as many questions as you want. And when you walk into our cookhouse, we have an entire wall dedicated to all our first responders and veterans, police, and fire, and a lot of them, they come out and drop their coins off. I was truly lucky. I was doing a dinner with Charlie Garrison out in Phoenix, Arizona, and I played a little game where I signed the bottom of a random stave in the room, and I said, whoever gets that stave for dinner, I'm going to get you your very own coin. And this gentleman won. He had said he had never won anything before, turned around, gave it right to his father, who's the sheriff in that county, and 2 weeks later, that sheriff sent me his sheriff coin, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I got to bring that coin after the distillery, and that myself to Donna so that we can proudly display that on our wall. So again, when I gave we got the same thing in our bartending community, as you know, Sam. So when I gave my Las Vegas USBG coin to Dan, he was certainly touched by that and said, well, I want some of my own coin. So that's where Dan started his Bourbon Brotherhood coin, and he's got a bronze, a silver, and a gold level coin. And we give this to all our bourbon evangelists around the country and everybody at the distillery. And whenever we see anybody doing an act of good faith, we join out there, we hand them one of the coins to welcome into our bourbon brother and sisterhood. And that's the bronze coin. When we see people doing some incredible selfless acts, stopping on the side of the street to change a stranger's tire, or paying it forward and buying groceries for your neighbor, or anything, big genuine gestures. We give them the silver coin. I've had a couple bartenders win competitions that have earned their silver coin that way, and then we have the gold coin that we're doing for the creme de la creme of people out there. So I tell you what, the amount I drink, I'm looking for a liver. So if anybody wants to get one and give me their liver, I'll give you a gold coin for doing that and helping me out there. But we did all kinds of things when we were doing our good bourbon for a good cause with our Laguna Madre that I'll talk a little bit about. We were supposed to release that this year, but with COVID and everything happened, we didn't get a chance to do that. So again, that is our bourbon, and we're finishing for 4 years, and then finishing that in French Limousine oak barrels. Going to impart a much different flavor on there. Now, these barrels are about $5,000 a pop. They are pretty damn expensive. So Dan saw everything going on in the world, but the world's still turned upside down. Hopefully there is some light at the end of the tunnel right now, and said, good bourbon for a good cause. We're going to put our money where our mouth is. We put these bottles of Laguna Madre out for sale for $1,000 donation. We raised over $402,000 for people buying these bottles of bourbon to help a good cause that they've never tasted before.
I remember that.
That is how strong our fans are, our cult following is, and how much people believe this is going to be a great bourbon. If Dan is honest to say it's going to be a great bourbon. So we appreciate the feedback. But most of my bartending community that I know are furloughed, we're out of work. Some of them even were forced to close there. So what I did was I developed this coin here, which is our Operation Crush COVID-19 coin.
Please talk about the coin.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of bartenders that had $1,000 to now invest in a bottle of bourbon and help out. So I got these coins made up on my own time. I put it out there on social media and Facebook to some of my bartending friends around the planet. And I said, listen, if you send me $20 to donate to our cause, I'll send you one of these coins. I raised about $2,200 and gave it all to Dan and put it out for Operation Crush COVID-19. And the coin also came with a caveat. If you see me, in 2020, and I'll extend that as well to 2021, Sam. If you see me anywhere out across America, and I do live in airports, you flash this coin, your Garrison Brothers is on me. So we want to pay it forward and help you pay it forward and everything like that. But it was real fun because I didn't say anything to Dan or Charlie or Donis about these coins. They started seeing them on Instagram and social media. Had no idea what was going on. So when I finally sold off the last coin in donation and was able to call Dan, he was almost in tears. He was super happy that we were able to raise more money for a good fund. So that was a fun, nice little thing to do.
That's awesome. I love the idea. It really goes back to what I was saying earlier about Garrison, that, it's a very community-oriented, hospitality-friendly as well company. And, it's not a company, it's a group of people. I mean, yeah, it's a company, but I don't think of Garrison as a company. I think of it as, you, Cole, Ryan, friggin', Donis, Dan, the community surrounding it, not just people who work for it. And that's one of the things that's important to me with whiskey brands, being that I work so much in whiskey and I'm, so in whiskey, obviously, I got a book. If you guys can't really see the book here. I didn't do a great job of framing that today, but let's scoot that over right there. I kind of involved a little heavily in whiskey, and there's whiskey companies and there's whiskey companies. Like there are whiskey companies and there are whiskey, people and brands. And Garrison really falls into the more like the people and brand kind of thing, is my point of view on it. It's more human, than I feel like a lot of companies.
At the end of the day, we're in hospitality. If you can't have good fun and good conversation and break bread over bourbon, you're doing something terribly wrong, and you should probably do something else with your life.
I mean, that's a little extreme, Shane.
I'm saying get out of it. At the end of the day, we're in hospitality, and our industry is suffering right now. We want to make sure we can take care of people. There's people that have had to close down their life. There's people that have been out of work since March. Any small thing we can do to shed some light, help them out, do anything like that. We saw all these big companies throwing money out there, but they didn't know what they were throwing money to. We didn't know if these bartenders, these out of work industry folks, maybe they needed their phone bill paid. Maybe they needed internet. Maybe they needed rent. Maybe they needed clothes for their children. People were just throwing money at the wall, and nobody knows where that money went. So we really wanted to scale back and start helping out first and foremost with everybody's health and safety, and then figure it out where people are going to need that help and what they're going to do. And we do believe good bourbon's going to change the world.
I fall in that category too. I haven't worked since March. My bar can't even operate right now. We don't serve food in California. ABC won't let you operate unless you're doing, as a liquor store if you don't serve food.
100%. I mean, it's still, like I said, there's hopefully light at the end of the tunnel, but there's still a lot of damage that's been done to our industry. We're just helping it. Trying to help out one person at a time wherever we can.
Absolutely. Well, Shane, I'm going to call it here for the day today. I know you've got a bunch of bartenders waiting on you to tell them what to do and where to go and probably run a cocktail competition for them. So I'm going to let you go. I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and taste through some damn good Texas bourbon. And as soon as it's, safe to travel, I look forward to seeing you for the glass of Garrison Brothers.
Absolutely. Cheers, Sam. Thanks for your time.
Salute. Cheers.